loaded veggie nachos are crispy, cheesy, totally meatless, and are actually done in under 30 minutes. Now, if you think nachos can't be a complete meal, I'm about to change your mind. These veggie nachos are so good that my whole family requests them for dinner at least once a week. And they have no idea that they're getting a massive serving of vegetables along with these nachos. These are perfect for game day, family night, or really just when you're craving a little crunch and need something quick and satisfying. So, hi everyone, I'm Anjali Shah. I'm a nutritionist, health coach, and a mom of two. And today I'm going to show you how to make the ultimate healthy loaded nachos without sacrificing any flavor. These are my go-to for a quick meal or an appetizer. They're naturally gluten-free. They're super customizable. They're easily made vegan, packed with protein and fiber, and we are adding all the toppings. So let's get into it. So here's what you're going to need to make these nachos. So first you need chips. Obviously you need chips for the base. So I use 9 ounces of tortilla chips. I recommend using thicker chips so that they don't crack under all of these toppings. Then I dice up about half of 1 red bell pepper and dice it up small. I take half a small red onion and dice that up small. Then I use about 5 ounces of corn, either frozen or canned corn, both work. If you use canned corn, make sure to drain it. I take 2 tomatoes and dice those. And I also make sure to seed them because again, you don't want all of the watery tomato seeds in your nachos. And then I use 5 ounces of canned beans. I usually like using a mix of black beans and pinto beans just for like extra protein, extra fiber, and just a different change in texture and color. But you can use any beans that you like. And then you need cheese for nachos. I like using a Mexican shredded cheese blend, which is usually a blend of Monterey Jack, cheddar, maybe pepper jack, and some other cheeses. But you can also use freshly grated cheddar cheese. You can use freshly grated Monterey Jack cheese, whatever cheese you like that melts well would be great for these nachos. And then for the toppings, I like to use a 1/4 cup of black olives, 1 green onion, and 1 jalapeno pepper seeded and thinly sliced. Then I also use a 1/4 cup of either sour cream, Greek yogurt, or vegan sour cream if I want to make these vegan, and 1 cup of guacamole because nachos always taste better with guacamole on top. And then I also add a few fresh ingredients like fresh cilantro, my favorite salsa, and pico de gallo for topping. Now, here's how we're going to build these nachos for maximum flavor and the perfect cheese to crunch ratio. First, you have to preheat your oven. Preheat your oven to 350 degrees. Now, you want to sprinkle on half of your shredded cheese because cheese will stick to the chips and then the toppings will stick to the cheese, so it helps everything just come together really well. Once you sprinkle on half of the shredded cheese, then you want to add your diced peppers, your onions, your corn, tomatoes, and beans. So, I gave you exact measurements of the amounts that I use, but you can really eyeball the quantities here because this recipe is super forgiving. Now, if you're using frozen corn, make sure it's defrosted and well drained. And then, as I mentioned before, if you're using canned corn, make sure that is well drained as well because nobody wants watery nachos. Now, you want to take all of the veggies and then spread them evenly so that each bite has a little bit of everything. And then you want to top with the rest of your cheese. Now, if you're feeding a big crowd, you can either do 2 batches of this or you can do 2 full layers on your baking sheet. So chips, cheese, toppings, and then repeat chips, cheese, toppings. It's totally up to you. Once you have it all ready to go, pop them in the oven for about 10 minutes or until the cheese is fully melted and the chips are lightly golden around the edges. You want that cheese bubbly and gooey, not browned and crispy. Now, a lot of times people ask me, can I broil these instead of bake them? Technically, yes, you can, but I don't actually recommend it. That's because boiling will give you a crispier, more bubbly top, but it's easy to burn the chips and the cheese. So I found broiling nachos to just be like way too stressful. I much prefer the consistent, melty texture that you get from baking. And then once they come out of the oven, I recommend adding all of your fresh toppings right before serving. So you don't want to add these before you bake, you want to add these after you bake. And so this is the black olives, the green onions, the jalapeno slices, sour cream, guacamole, cilantro, salsa, pico de gallo, any of these fresh, kind of wetter toppings, you want to add them right before you serve, because if you add them too early, your nachos will get soggy fast. So once you add all of your fresh toppings, just serve it immediately and everyone will enjoy it. Now, let me put on my nutritionist hat for a second. So what I love about this recipe is that it's actually super balanced. The beans give you plant-based protein and fiber to keep you full. The guacamole adds healthy fat. The veggies bring a mix of antioxidants and fiber and vitamins and minerals. And because the tortilla chips are naturally gluten-free, this whole recipe is actually naturally gluten-free without even having to try. You're getting way more nutrients here than you would from traditional nachos, and it's hearty enough to serve as a main dish. My kids eat these and they think they're getting a total treat, but I also know that they're getting all these veggies in with their nachos, so it's really just like a win-win. Now, I just want to get into how I like to mix things up. So here are some ways to make this recipe your own, or just switch things up if you just want to try something different. So if you want a little bit of extra flavor and spice, I recommend drizzling hot sauce or roasted red pepper crema, or just something that's a little bit more spicy over the top. You can also, instead of the fresh veggies, swap in roasted veggies tossed in taco seasoning for a little bit more spice. If you want to make chili nachos, you can add a scoop of vegetarian chili on top, or you can mix the beans with some chili powder, garlic, cumin, and diced tomatoes for like kind of a homemade quick chili. If you want to make these vegan, you can use vegan cheese and vegan sour cream. And if you're serving this to super picky eaters, you can make it just with the cheese and the chips and let the kids add their own toppings. And when you dice up the toppings, dice them up super small so that the veggies aren't so obvious on the nachos. And when the kids are making their own nachos, it makes them way more excited to eat it. So those are just some ways that you can change up this recipe. If you're serving this to a larger crowd, I like to serve this with a light tomato, cucumber, avocado salad on the side, or pair them with other Mexican appetizers like empanadas for a bigger spread. Now, in terms of storage, these are definitely best enjoyed fresh out of the oven, but if you are meal prepping, you can prep all your toppings ahead of time and store them in separate containers for about 2 to 3 days. And then you can just assemble and bake right before serving. If you do have leftovers that are already baked, I recommend storing them in an airtight container in the fridge for about a day and then reheating in the oven for about 5 to 10 minutes to just crisp them back up. Now, that's all you need to do to make these crispy, cheesy, veggie-loaded nachos in just 30 minutes. And I've added the full recipe with the exact measurements in the description below. Now, if you make these, make sure to let me know in the comments how they turned out. And if you found this video helpful, make sure to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell, because I post easy, healthy, family-friendly recipe videos just like this every single week.